I'm so excited to share that this podcast is sponsored by The RealReal, the best place to shop authenticated luxury bags, clothing, watches, and so much more. I'm obsessed with gold bracelets. I just found the most beautiful Fendi bracelet. Now, you can scour The RealReal for new pieces. There are 10,000 new items every day. The RealReal is attainable luxury that upgrades your personal style. With up to 90% off retail, you can finally have the pieces that you've been dreaming of from brands like Gucci, Fendi, and Prada. The RealReal is great for the planet and for your wardrobe. They're finding new homes for over 37 million authenticated luxury items, so they know firsthand the impact that resale has on the planet. And it's the go-to place for your next special piece. Think about all the fun things that you have coming this spring and summer. The RealReal is the world's largest and most trusted resource for authenticated luxury resale. With thousands of new arrivals daily, no one does resale like The RealReal. So now get $25 off your first purchase when you go to therealreal.com/KateCasey. That's therealreal.com/KateCasey to get your $25 off. Start shopping now at therealreal.com/KateCasey. Let's be honest, nothing boosts confidence quite like great hair. But if you're seeing more strands in the shower, your confidence might not be at its highest. That's why you need Hers Hair. Hers Hair treatments are made with doctor-trusted prescription ingredients that many other hair products out there just don't have. They come in a variety of options, including oral and topical solutions, so you can find the one that works for you. Getting started is simple with a quick online hair quiz. Just answer some questions and you will be connected with a provider to discuss your personalized treatment plan. Through Hers, everything is 100% online, so no pharmacy trips, doctor's office visits, or insurance required, and plus, treatments start at just $35 a month. And the best part, you can get thicker, fuller, healthier hair and start seeing regrowth in as little as 3 to 6 months. Start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/KateCasey. That's FORHERS.com/KateCasey for your personalized hair loss treatment options. forhers.com/KateCasey. Individual results may vary. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. Today's episode is about Pee-wee as himself, a new 2-part HBO documentary that offers an intimate and deeply moving exploration of actor and comedian Paul Reubens, the creative force behind the iconic character Pee-wee Herman. Paul was an actor, writer, producer, and comedic genius who became a beloved and influential figure in American pop culture. He developed the Pee-wee Herman character during his time with the Groundlings, the legendary improv and sketch comedy troupe in Los Angeles. In 1981, he created a stage show that became a cult sensation, eventually airing as an HBO special. And then came Pee-wee's Big Adventure in 1985, directed by Tim Burton, a quirky, unforgettable film that made Pee-wee a household name. From 1986 to 1990, Pee-wee's Playhouse lit up Saturday mornings with surreal humor, colorful sets, and unexpected depth. It won multiple Emmy Awards and was celebrated for its creativity and inclusivity. In 2016, the character returned to screens with the Netflix film, introducing Pee-wee to a whole new generation. Now, beyond Pee-wee, he took on a variety of eccentric and memorable roles in film and TV, including Batman Returns, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Mystery Men, Blow, and guest appearances on 30 Rock, The Blacklist, and Gotham. The documentary, directed by Matt Wolf, is based on more than 40 hours of interviews that were recorded in the final months of his life. It gives a rare and deeply moving glimpse into his world, from his early influences and meteoric rise to fame to the emotional toll of balancing a public persona with a deeply private life. One of the most poignant moments in the film is his posthumous coming out as gay. He opens up about this significant relationship that ended under the weight of the public scrutiny and the fear that his sexuality could jeopardize his career. His reflections are honest, emotional, and incredibly brave. And the film also addresses the legal controversies that marked difficult periods in his life, the 1991 arrest in an adult theater, and a 2002 charge that was later dismissed. He speaks candidly about the impact of those events and how much of the backlash was shaped by homophobia. Included in the documentary is a touching message he recorded the day before his death from cancer in July 2023. He had kept his diagnosis private while continuing to work, and in a statement released after his passing, he apologized for not sharing his illness and thanked fans for their decades of love and support. His final message is a reminder that everything he created was rooted in love for his work, his characters, and his audience. Pee-wee as himself is more than a tribute. It's a celebration of a life lived with wild imagination, deep sensitivity, and boundless creativity. He's remembered not just for Pee-wee Herman, but for his ability to tap into childlike wonder, to make us laugh, and to remind us not to take life so seriously. His work has influenced generations of comedians, writers, and filmmakers. Kathy Griffin, who joins me today, was a longtime friend of Paul's. They came through the alternative comedy scene in LA and had a mutual admiration for each other's work. She describes him as a cherished friend and a deeply kind, supportive presence behind the scenes. At the end of our conversation, she asked me to share the last birthday message that he sent to her, one that made her laugh out loud, and I hope it brings you the same joy it brought to her and to me. Here is my interview with Kathy. Kathy, I watched the Pee-wee Herman documentary and I thought of nothing but you. I thought nothing of you. I had to have you on to talk about Paul Reubens because I know how much he meant to you as a friend. And it feels like, knowing you for the amount of time that I've had, that the comedy world is very small. And it feels like if you've got a close friend in comedy, it's so precious.
Because it's so competitive. And I really like that. First of all, I was just in love with Paul Reubens. And I have a confession, which is that when I was a baby wannabe comic, and we were at a theater, we're in the same theater company called the Groundlings, which he talks about a lot in this documentary, which is excellent, by the way, excellent. And I was in the Groundlings. And when I was in the Groundlings, he already had been Pee-wee, or he had already tried out Pee-wee, and it was still at the Roxy Theater here in Los Angeles. And I had the biggest crush on him. No clue he was gay. Now, he was closeted, which he talks about in the documentary. But I was such a dork, I would stare at his picture on the wall and be like, Paul Reubens is going to ask me out on a date. I know it. And then we'll probably get married and have funny children, even though I don't want to have kids, and he probably doesn't either. But anyway, I still think it was the lavender marriage that should have happened.
He really was gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Yeah. And he had that star quality because the first time I met him in person, I kind of took a moment. Like, I had to tell myself, Kathy, stop staring at this man. Like, okay, you have a crush on him, whatever. It's a harmless crush. You don't even know him. But he when people talk about the it factor, and I know it's a cliche, man, Paul Reubens had it, and he had it as Paul because he was very enigmatic and very hard to get to know as Paul. And there were phases when the last thing he wanted to do was talk about Pee-wee or be Pee-wee. There were phases when he refused to be Pee-wee ever again. I remember that phase. I remember the Pee-wee is retired phase. And yet, they were so intertwined that if you were lucky enough to know him well enough, he would accidentally throw in some Pee-wee stuff. But he also had other characters that were just as good and just as funny. But when you're a character comedian, you don't know which one's going to take off. And I love how this documentary shows the whole journey from like being the artiste, going to CalArts, being out of the closet, even doing like some drag. And then I think his father said, you got to get it together and focus if you want to actually be successful in this business. And I will defend his right to be closeted at that time, because in the bad old days of the early 80s, you were limited if you were out. You were extremely limited. And you could count the famous people on your hand that were out. And for a long time, I think that's why he found some solace in not only Pee-wee, but all of his alter egos.
What was it like to be around him as a friend and as an artist?
Well, as an artist, I found it hard to be around him because if I was working with him, and I had the same feeling about the late, great Phil Hartman, I almost couldn't be in the scene because I found myself watching. They were so good. And I did many shows with the great Phil Hartman, who plays Captain Carl on the Pee-wee Herman show and was on Saturday Night Live for a million years and amazing. And that quality is unique because the Groundlings is really elite. I mean, it's the best of the best. I'm actually I have a confession. Paul and I shared something and we discussed it a lot. We both had a bit of a trauma situation with the Groundlings, and it was an amazing time in both of our lives, but it was at least when I was there, it was set up as a very competitive environment. Every single show, every day in class, and yet I think that's what made us tough. And as I watched the documentary, it was so interesting to watch him go from being part of this company. And when you're in an improvisation company, you don't know what's going to happen. You're doing some written scenes, and then the second act is all improvisation. And I do remember, I'm bragging now, but I remember Paul telling me one time, it's time for you to leave the company. You're a singular artist. And I'm so happy they covered that in the doc, because it doesn't mean he thought he was better than the Groundlings. He just understood, I've now created this character, Pee-wee Herman, who stands out from the Groundlings so much that it had to be moved. That show had to be moved from the Groundlings Theater, which still exists and is on Melrose in Los Angeles. So if you're coming to LA or if you live in LA, treat yourself, go to a Groundlings show. I still think it's the best of the best. And he moved the Pee-wee Herman show to the Roxy, which in the 80s, the Roxy and the Rainbow Room were next door to each other, rock and roll clubs. So it was revelatory to even do a comedy show there. And they did the show at midnight, which on the Sunset Strip is kind of no big deal. And it was truly the hottest ticket in town. You could not get a ticket to the Pee-wee Herman show.
When you were around him, once he kind of accessed that level of fame, what was it like? And how did people react to him?
Rock star. I remember I didn't go to the premiere of the first Pee-wee movie, but I went to the second Pee-wee movie premiere, and it was on the Paramount lot. And they had, this is the big budget days. It was like a Marvel or DC movie. I'm not kidding. And it was Pee-wee's Big Top. And they had an entire full faux Pee-wee-like circus that took up the entire Paramount lot. There had to be thousands of people at this party. And I went with one of the writers, George McGrath, and I was his plus one. And I didn't want to bother Paul because I was just a coming up baby groundling. I hadn't even been on TV yet or anything, or maybe I had done a little something. And I've told him this story so many times, but there was just this moment because he knew George, my date, very well because he was one of the writers. And yet everybody wanted a piece of him. And there was just this one moment where I was just kind of watching him hold court, not like a creeper, but just wow, he's got a glad hand to every single person, and he's doing interviews, and he's a big star. And he just happened to catch me in the crowd, and he just stopped and gave me this wink. And later on, I said, "I'm sure you don't remember." And he goes, "Kathy, of course I remember. I was trying to give you this is going to be you someday wink." And first of all, he certainly overestimated my D-list status, but that's who he was.
Generous.
He had a thing for talent, and I'm lucky enough to be someone he thought was talented, and he would stop whatever he was doing. He really was the definition of an artist. And I like that this documentary treats him as the artist he was, because he wasn't Like I do sort of more of the cult of personality, and Paul wasn't. Paul was very private, and it was definitely not easy to get him to reveal things about himself.
Summer's just around the corner, and the folks at Mint Mobile have a hot take. Getting a summer bod is out, and getting your savings bod is in. This spring and summer, we want skimpy wireless bills and fat wallets. And with premium wireless plans for just $15 a month, you can have both without breaking a sweat or the bank. And let me tell you, the quality of Mint Mobile's wireless service in comparison to my old provider is mint. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get your summer savings and shop premium wireless plans at mintmobile.com/realitylife. That's mintmobile.com/realitylife. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. When I put together my bag each day, I need the essentials, my wallet, my keys, and I also need my liquid IV, which is helping me stay hydrated throughout the whole day. You can break the mold and own your own ritual with just 1 stick and 16 ounces of water, which hydrates better than water alone. Powered by Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration, 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. And I gotta tell you, the best flavors. You have a multitude of flavors, acai berry and lemon lime to pina colada, or you can choose from their line of sugar-free flavors like raspberry lemonade, white peach, and rainbow sherbet. Get ready for a long day with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code Kate Casey at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with code Kate Casey at liquidiv.com.
When we talk about, again, about the political and social climate, which prevented him from being out.
Yeah.
And then he has this scandal that happens.
Yeah.
And he's working on a show that's really tailored for children.
I don't know that it's been done since, but what was so great about the Pee-wee Herman show is it was technically a children's show, but it really was for adults. But not like Simpsons, which is already in prime time, but adults were getting up on Saturday mornings and would not miss the Pee-wee Herman show. And this was prior to streaming, prior to when you can watch a show whenever you want. Like we set the alarm clock, and no matter how hard we had worked the night before, or in my case, doing shows or whatever, you couldn't miss it. And so very much a children's category show in the Emmys, but with all the nods to the adults in the safe way. And what his scandal was he was caught masturbating in a porn theater in Florida. And his parents live in Florida, and he would go spend a lot of time with them. He's a really good family member. He was a very good son. And when it happened, I'll be honest, my first thing was I was so relieved he wasn't caught doing that in a gay theater, because I knew that at that time, not only would it be so challenging to be out, not like now, but he was the star of a children's show on, I think, CBS.
Mm-hmm.
And that brass up there was not going to be giving a gay guy a show, much less a kid show that had sort of all these nods to adults. So when that scandal happened, I almost don't know if in today's world you can describe how seismic it was. But can you describe it? Like, do you remember where you were when you heard about it, or how you were?
Oh, yeah. Because it aired on every single news station. And
news. Explain to people. It was part of the lead of the news.
Yeah. I mean, top of the news, not even like buried at the end of it, top of the news. And so obviously demeaning.
And they really vilified him. Like, you would think that he had actually done something to harm another human being.
Well, that's the way the story's led. They made it seem like there was a child in proximity. The way that they, the narrative, I think, when you see the documentary, is you see it was far different than the narrative that was projected at the top, again, the top of the news stream.
And remember, he was not used to anything resembling publicity like this. Like, he had gotten all favorable publicity. I mean, sure, when he would go on David Letterman every 2 months, they used to have contracts back in the day on David Letterman. And Paul got one, and he would go as Pee-wee every 2 months, and he would write bits in between. And Dave would be kind of the straight man and follow along with it and stuff. And, you know, Dave would give him a hard time sometimes because Dave is a complicated guy. You know, he's very talented, and I loved doing his show, but I was always like a little scared of him. And some of the Pee-wee appearances, to be honest, I felt like Dave was, I don't want to say picking on him, but sometimes I think I'd be like, David, don't forget, this is a beloved character for all generations, for children up all the way up to people far older than you. And that was like as close as Paul ever came to a scandal. Is maybe every so often they'd be like, oh, well, that Letterman appearance was over the top or something. But I think being trained as an improviser, Paul was so good at rolling with whatever anyone was going to say, because interviewers of that time, I think a lot of people, like a Ryan Seacrest, if they just do straight interviews and you come in with a character, it throws them so much that they just kind of go like, ew, ick. And the host almost turns on him. And yet Paul was masterful at turning it back to Pee-wee's lovable side no matter what. So this was a beloved American actor / character. And I mean, to this day, when you think about that scandal, which is that he was in Sarasota in an adult theater, because that's when you had to see adult movies in the theater. And it was shame-based, and no guy wanted to be seen by a member of the community even walking in the theater, even though they all went anyway. And just I remember hearing about it and initially thinking, like I said, like, okay, it was a heterosexual porn movie. He's going to keep his job. Like, I was so dumb. I didn't know the reaction would be so vicious. And I don't know what to liken it to today, but he had to go into hiding. And for what? You know, and the price he paid career-wise is heartbreaking. And yet I think about his victorious return to the screen when the MTV VMA Awards were the coolest, biggest, most watched award show ever. And they got the biggest stars. And everybody wanted to be on MTV back in the day because it automatically got you a young audience. So I did anything MTV asked me to. I mean, I did Say What karaoke. I did TRL Live more times than I can count. Anytime MTV called, I went to Summer House. Remember, they used to have like a... So for Paul to walk out as Pee-wee and start the show by saying, heard any good jokes lately? It was one of those long applause breaks that you only hear about. And so I have so much respect for him that he came up with that line. And I'm so glad that it's funny that MTV went on to be owned by CBS, and to come back in that way to the perfect audience. So I also love, you know me, I'm a business person, and I love the business side of Paul as well, which is also greatly underestimated. But Paul was a good, very savvy businessman. And that was a very, very strategic and brilliant thing to do at a time when the guy couldn't leave his house without being hounded by the press over this scandal.
How long did it take him before he felt like, or at least in talking with you, or you could feel it as a friend, that he felt like that was behind him?
Years.
Wow.
And he hid out at Doris Duke's house. And she was an heiress and more money than you can imagine. And Paul just knew everybody. It's just one of those things where during the course of Pee-wee, like in the documentary, they talk about when it was at the Roxy and De Niro and Scorsese were in the audience. It was that kind of show, and he was that kind of celebrity. And there was also the mystique of, gosh, if I meet him in person, if I go to the Pee-wee Herman show and maybe there's a meet and greet after or something, and he's still got the makeup on and the bow tie, will I get a glimpse of Paul? And so that was also a big thing that actually not only captured the imagination of America and the world, but like big time celebrities would be wanting to see if they could get a little window into the real Paul.
And would he really let people see that? And was he somebody who could just like walk about town without the makeup on and surprisingly wouldn't be recognized?
Yes, Paul could walk as himself and be unrecognized. And he couldn't go 3 feet as Pee-wee Herman, even if he didn't have the outfit on, if he just did the voice. So he probably got very schooled in things like, you're in line for the hostess booth at the restaurant. You like how I say hostess booth at the restaurant, and you don't want to be recognized. So he would do his regular Paul voice. He also was very quiet, and he was very quiet spoken. Like I remember a lot of times leaning in or being like, Paul, I can't even hear you, but that's who he was. He was, I hope he wouldn't mind the word shy, but he was a very reserved, shy person. And I didn't see him let loose as a comedian, as Paul, all that much. He was more of like an intellectual, and, he loved to gossip. I mean, he and I would gossip a lot, but whoever I was gossiping about, he'd be like, oh yeah, I've been to their house 5 times. Like I'd say, I met Bette Midler and she got mad at me because when I hosted Halloween, she didn't like this joke or whatever. And he'd be like, oh yeah, one time Bette and I were on vacation. And she also, like, it was always, and I always loved him as a friend, but a little part of me was always a fan.
So when he passed away, I remember you posted a little story about him and what a great friend he was. And I felt myself crying.
Paul was known for years making birthday videos for his friends, celebrity or not. And whether I had seen Paul in the last year or not, he would not only send me a birthday video, he would send me multiples. And they were so funny that at his memorial, Conan O'Brien was one of the speakers. And Conan was joking about, like, enough already. You've sent me 6 videos. I'm working. I'm busy. Stop sending me videos. And when I saw Conan posted his, when Paul passed away, I thought, okay. Because I really wanted to share the video. Not like, oh, I can prove I was his friend. But because those videos were so Paul when he felt like being on. Because once he felt like flicking the switch, get out of the way. And those videos are so dear to me. And he would send me vintage cards for my birthday. And then he would write something or draw something inappropriate on it. Or he would just write, saw this and thought of you. Or can you believe the dress she's wearing in this picture? Or whatever. But he was so thoughtful. And one of the things I remember about his memorial, which, by the way, was more A-list than the Academy Awards.
It looked like
and he had a photo booth set up so you could actually take, at his own memorial, you could take a picture in the Playhouse, which I know sounds weird and morbid, but it wasn't. It was sweet.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Lynn Stewart, Miss Yvonne spoke. I mean, there were a lot of amazing speakers. Mailman Mike, John Moody, who played Mailman Mike on the show. And it was amazing to hear stories that I didn't know either. Mm-hmm. And I sat with all comedians, and you're right, we're not all the closest. We tend to be a little too competitive. But at that memorial, I was like, where are my girls? Mm-hmm. Where are my comedy girls? I don't care if I haven't talked to this one for 3 years. I don't care if I had a fight with this one 15 years ago. We all clicked up, and we all had this really similar feeling about Paul, which is like, I know this is corny. I was in love with him. I mean, I was in love with him. Like, I just kind of couldn't get enough of him. But I also knew he was like quite private and a bit of a loner. And then when he came out of his shell, he would come out of his shell. But he also, lived in this house for a million years that was like, for me, it was too cluttery. I was like, I can't think straight. But he loved being surrounded by all the toys and the kitschy stuff. He loved kitsch. And at the memorial is when I found out. I did not know he would regularly feed coyotes. And I live in an area where coyotes are my nightmare because I have dogs. Right. And the coyotes will kill them. But Paul would say, if I feed the coyotes, they won't have to kill puppies and kittens. So Paul had a side of him that was mushier than the sweetest Pee-wee moment that Pee-wee ever did. And I did not know that till the memorial. Like, I didn't know he would be out there like this, feeding deer or coyotes. But he was an animal lover, but for the animals that have been maligned.
Mm. Well, I'm sure he felt that resonated with him.
Yes. And so I was so glad to learn that about him, because that's the kind of guy he was. He would do cool shit and then not brag about it.
There are so many things in life we just never get around to. Taking up that hobby, cleaning out the garage, the little things that don't really make huge differences in our lives. Yet, there's one thing that most of us have probably been neglecting that can have a huge impact on our family's future. It's life insurance. And with SelectQuote, getting covered with the right policy for you is easier and more affordable than you may think. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. If you have high blood pressure, no problem. If you have diabetes, that's fine too. And even if you have heart disease, SelectQuote partners with carriers that can cover those conditions and others. Head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. SelectQuote, they shop and you save. So get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/realitylife. Go to SelectQuote.com/realitylife today and get started. That's SelectQuote.com/realitylife. Summer's almost here. It is my most favorite time of the year, and there's no better place to go for outdoor furniture than Wayfair. Wayfair's huge selection of outdoor essentials will help make your outdoor space more comfortable, functional, and most importantly, more you. Wayfair has all things outdoor and at unbelievable prices. So don't wait until summer's in full swing. You've got to get your outdoor space ready today so you can enjoy it all season long. I just love the look of white wicker in a backyard, and then to spruce it up with some blue or yellow pillows. Wayfair really has everything that you and I both need. Outdoor dining tables and sets, umbrellas, dining chairs, bar stools, grills, outdoor bars, even tableware. Their huge selection of home items makes it easy to find exactly what's right for you. And I gotta tell you, my favorite part, it is free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff. So no more huge delivery fees for patio furniture. You can get big stuff like patio sets, gazebos, hot tubs, and more shipped free. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online. This summer, get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Also, when you have had your own
difficult times, it sounded like he was a great friend to you too, giving you like someone to talk to, a place to go where you just want some refuge because of obviously his own life experiences too.
Honey, he called me the day of the Trump decapitated head picture 8 years ago and said, call me. I am one of the few people in the world that knows exactly what you're going through right now. And I called him sobbing, and he said, I want to come over and I want to hang out with you, just the two of us. And I was like, absolutely, because I can't leave my house. So come on over. And he came over and he spent the night with me. And he told me all the stories about what he did when his scandal happened. He invited me to live at his house with him because he said, you won't be bothered there. Nobody will know you're there. Nobody in a million years would be like, oh, we can find that traitor Kathy Griffin by going to Pee-wee Herman's house. And he would say Pee-wee Herman's house. And he just talked me through that, and he said, you're going to find out who your friends are. And boy, was he right. Mm-hmm. And so he talked to me about how to kind of navigate those waters. And he said, I know what it's like to be the ticker on CNN. I know what it's like to be an actual news item, not a Hollywood news segment item. And, I know what you're feeling inside, because what I was feeling inside was just constant diarrhea. Like, if I could just say it, whatever kind of turmoil, but that's what comes to mind. But, he said, I know that feeling of beyond the pit of your stomach, but it's this, oh God, oh God, oh God. It's so much incoming that I was so grateful that he not only insisted on coming over, but said, I want it to be just us. Mm-hmm. And, I probably would have invited a couple friends over or something, or tried to have a dinner party for him or whatever. So, that went so far because it's not that I didn't receive some supportive calls. I did. I can count them on one hand, but his saying, and I'm one of the only people in the world that knows exactly what you're going through right now. Ma'am, that was true. That was true. And he was so helpful. And just talking with him made me feel in that moment like, oh, I can take a breath from just incoming and people just calling me, telling me I fucked up and telling me I ruined my career and emailing me and telling me I ruined my career and telling me that I should be afraid of Trump and all this. Like, he didn't sign on to any of that nonsense. And he said, this is all nonsense. And someday you're going to look back on it. And guess what? History is going to reflect it as just a bunch of nonsense and bullshit. And he was right. I actually do feel that way now. Now, he couldn't quite convince me of it that very night, but I definitely remember everything he said, especially about going to hide out in Doris Duke's house.
No kidding.
Badass.
Did you have any idea he was sick?
No idea. And I feel so guilty and stupid because the last time I corresponded with him, as you know, I have these salon parties and they have a theme, which is basically talk to each other because there's no phones allowed at the table and only one person can talk at a time. So everybody has to talk, but also everybody ends up liking talking and liking listening. And I invited him to one and he said no. I think he said something about the drive to Malibu was too long or, something I'm used to hearing. And I said, okay, I'm going to try you again. And then Lorraine Newman, a good friend of his and mine, and Saturday Night Live original cast member, he said, let's have another salon and invite Paul again. So I said, well, that freaking recluse, it's so hard to get him out of his house. And we were just kind of giggling. And so we had another one. And I said, this time it's Lorraine and I insisting that you come. And I know it's a drive. I'll send a car. I'll do whatever you want, but, get over here. And he just sent another, I can't make it. I'm so sorry. I just can't. And then I wrote him back. And then I was just being his buddy, giving him shit. And I'm like, look, Mary, put the dress on and get the fuck over here. Or the way I talk to my gays, as I love him to say it. And so I was able to joke with him in that way. And he just wrote back another, like, I just can't make it on that day. And I'm just so sorry. But, I just have such regret that I didn't just drive to his house and knock on the door and say, what? Why can't you come see me? And I didn't. And I think about that and I discuss it with Lorraine every time I see her. And it's like, that's why he couldn't come over. He didn't want
you to know. He didn't want people to see him like that.
Yes. And I will tell you this. I can't even imagine Paul not looking like the Paul. By the way, he's one of these guys that stayed the same weight. Like he could fit into his clothes from high school. Like he really didn't change. In his mind, he was, vain like we all are. And he didn't want to do Pee-wee until he could look like Pee-wee 20 years ago or whatever. But I can't imagine him being sick because he always just seemed in control. And I'm glad the documentary covers that. And he talks about that so openly as well. But when you are in the process of breaking out of a group of comedians, like we both were from the Groundlings comedy troupe, and surrounded by greats. I'm not saying I stood out. I'm just saying he communicated to me, it's time for you to go off on your own now. And I'm glad the doc covers so much of his coming to terms with, I love the Groundlings, but this Pee-wee Herman thing is something I can only do by myself.
Yeah. I think the thing that is going to stay with me is what you've said about him, that he was so private, but he still felt so connected to all of his friends. The fact that he's making these videos and checking in and remembers people's birthdays. So it's kind of an interesting thing because you would assume that someone who is so generous like that would be an extrovert, but he really was such a private person.
Well, think about it. So it was a way for him to communicate with all of us with just his own whatever camera, and he's been doing them so long that it could have been a flip camera. I don't even know. Yeah. But that was his comfort zone. But it was funny because I thought that he was the only one sending these videos to. And then when he passed away and I saw Conan's, my first thought was, Paul, I thought I was special. But the thing that was touching is once Conan and I put up our videos, everybody put up theirs.
Oh,
and it's
cool.
Just like this snowstorm of just hilarity and love coming from heaven. And if there's a heaven, Paul's in it. And I loved watching everyone else's videos. And yeah, they had a couple of the same jokes, but that's not the point. He never missed my birthday. And sending them multiple videos was the best part. It was just, it just kept coming. And like I said, it wasn't just one vintage card. It was like multiple vintage cards. And I knew he had a collection, and I thought I would think of him sourcing these vintage cards from who knows what, estate sales or something. But Paul could do stuff like go to an estate sale and not be recognized. He so really, crazy. It was a mask, and he took it off and put it on.
Especially if he could change his voice, you know. And with the ponytail, I could see how, he looked like his father as he got older.
And so hot when he was younger. I never knew long-haired Paul. Like, yes, later at post-scandal, he grew up a ponytail, but because he wanted to not be recognized when he was in Florida. But the early pictures of him, in or out of drag, he's hot as hell.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, I'm so glad that you gave me this window into your friendship, and I appreciate it. Tell everybody where they can find you, and you've got a great Substack where people can go and watch videos too.
Thank you. Well, please be a paid subscriber on Substack and Patreon. And I know that's insensitive to say at this time, but anyone who can, just know it's very appreciated, and it's all different content. And I have a YouTube show that goes up every Tuesday called Kathy Griffin Talk Your Head Off. And I got in a little hot water for telling a behind the scenes story about when I was on the Stephen Colbert show. So that one went viral. So you never know what I'm going to say. And I never know what's going to take off or not. And I'm not on tour at the moment, but keep checking kathygriffin.com or my TikTok or my Instagram and check out, and I'll keep you abreast on all things going on, whether it has something to do with me or not.
Thank you.
I love you, Kate.
Love
You're
you
so
too.
great and so smart and so good at this.
Thank you.
I love you.
Well, Kathy. That's right, Kath. Television's Paul Reubens, Pee-wee, Kathy. I don't think I have to tell you who I am. I don't have to, and I won't. Kathy, let me ask you a question. What would ever possess me to take this kind of time from my busy celebrity schedule? I'll be right there, everybody! To make a video like this for you. Why? Why would I do it? Why? I asked the question, I'm going to answer it. I'm crazy, Kathy. Crazy about you. I'm crazy about you. I hope you know that. I don't know if you really know the extent of it. I mean, I've got my yearly happy birthday, Kathy messages, and I'm thinking about you, Kathy, and holidays. But, well, maybe it does add up. I'm practically stalking you all the time. But listen, in all seriousness, I really like you. Like you. And I'm not sure if you know the extent of it, but I really, really like you. All right, I love you. I blurted it out. There. It's out there. I love you. I really do. Seriously. I love everything about you. You're genuine and real and hilarious. You're crazy talented and crazy. I'm in awe of you. I respect you. I like everything about you. Really, seriously. I really do. Honest. Come on. I hope you believe me because it's true. And I want you to know I'm thinking about you today and sending you so much love and light, and that I hope that this year beginning for you today is filled with kindness, joy, love, and happiness, Kathy. Seriously. All the very, very best. Mwah! Dude!
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my wonderful guest, Kathy Griffin, and remind you to click subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Please join the Facebook group Reality Life with Kate Casey. You need to get my What to Watch list. I will give you a list every week of what to watch in unscripted TV, including reality shows and documentaries and series. Go to katecasey.substack.com. You can also get bonus episodes by going to patreon.com/Kate Casey. And follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at KateCaseyCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at Kate Casey. Make sure that you check back tomorrow for an all-new episode.
Every successful business starts with an idea, and on The Best Idea Yet, we're obsessed with those light bulb moments.
Like how a bored barista invented the Frappuccino during his downtime, and then it got acquired by Starbucks.
Or how Patagonia's iconic fleece was inspired by a toilet seat cover.
On The Best Idea Yet, we dive into the untold origin stories behind the products you're obsessed with, and the bold risk takers who made them go viral.
These are the wild ideas and insights that made Birkenstock the best-selling sandal since Jesus.
And made Super Mario the most played video game in the history of attention span.
Yeah, Nintendo almost became a ramen company until Super Mario saved it.
New episodes drop every Tuesday. Follow The Best Idea Yet on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can listen early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus. And if this podcast lasts longer than 45 minutes, call your doctor.